Welcome to episode 16, part 2 of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. In part 1, we built the diagnosis, staging, and prognosis. Now we treat it. We'll cover the modern targeted agents that have displaced chemoimmunotherapy, how TP53 and IGHV steer the choice, the signature toxicities you must recognize, what to do at relapse, drug resistance mechanisms, and finally Richter transformation. This is where the management questions live. The single most important frame. CLL therapy has shifted decisively from chemoimmunotherapy, regimens like FCR and bendamustine rituximab, to targeted agents. There are two pillars, BTK inhibitors and the BCL2 inhibitor venetoclax. The choice among them is driven by TP53 status, IGHV status, patient fitness and comorbidities, and whether you want continuous or time-limited treatment. Chemoimmunotherapy now has only a narrow remaining niche. The first pillar is BTK inhibition. These drugs block Bruton tyrosine kinase, shutting down B-cell receptor signaling that CLL cells depend on. Ibrutinib was the first-generation covalent inhibitor. Acalabrutinib and zanubrutinib are second-generation covalent agents that are more selective, with fewer off-target effects. The defining feature is that covalent BTK inhibitors are given continuously, indefinitely, until disease progression or unacceptable toxicity. BTK inhibitor toxicities are heavily tested. The classic off-target effects, most pronounced with ibrutinib, are atrial fibrillation, hypertension, and an increased bleeding tendency from platelet dysfunction, relevant around surgery and with anticoagulation. Ibrutinib also causes arthralgias and diarrhea. The second-generation agents, acalabrutinib and zanubrutinib, were designed to reduce these off-target effects and have better cardiac tolerability, which is why they're often preferred. The second pillar is venetoclax, a BH3, mimetic that directly inhibits BCL2 and restores the cancer cell's ability to undergo apoptosis. Paired with the anti-CD20 antibody obinutuzumab, it delivers a fixed, time-limited course, typically 1 year, and produces deep remissions, often with undetectable minimal residual disease. Its signature, exam-favorite danger is tumor-lysis syndrome, which dictates how the drug is started. Because venetoclax can rapidly kill a large tumor burden, it is started with a deliberate weekly dose ramp-up over 5 weeks rather than a full dose. Tumor-lysis risk is stratified by nodal bulk, the absolute lymphocyte count, and renal function. Prophylaxis includes aggressive hydration and allopurinol, with rasburicase and inpatient monitoring for high-risk patients. Recognizing this ramp-up and tumor-lysis prophylaxis is a frequent management question. Frontline therapy starts with the TP53 fork. If the patient has a 17p deletion or a TP53 mutation, chemoimmunotherapy is contraindicated. It simply doesn't work and is the wrong answer on the exam. These patients receive targeted therapy, either a BTK inhibitor or a venetoclax-based regimen. TP53 disruption equals chemoimmunotherapy resistance. And because the abnormality can be acquired, you reconfirm it right before making this decision. If TP53 is intact, IGHV status and fitness refine the choice. Unmutated IGHV does poorly with chemoimmunotherapy, so targeted therapy is preferred. The historical exception was a young, fit patient with mutated IGHV, in whom FCR produced very durable, plateau-like remissions, a classic teaching point, though in current practice targeted agents are usually favored even here. Comorbidities matter too. Significant cardiac disease or atrial fibrillation risk pushes you toward venetoclax over a BTK inhibitor. A practical axis the boards like is treatment structure. Covalent BTK inhibitors are continuous, taken indefinitely until they fail or cause toxicity. Venetoclax with obinutuzumab is fixed duration, a defined 12-month course that yields a treatment-free interval afterward, often guided by minimal residual disease. The trade-off between indefinite daily therapy and a finite, more intensive course is a real shared decision point with patients, factoring in adherence and preference. At Relapse, first retest FISH and TP53 because the biology evolves. The general strategy is to switch class. A patient who progressed on a BTK inhibitor moves to a venetoclax-based regimen, and vice versa. When a covalent BTK inhibitor fails, often through resistance mutations, pirtobrutinib, a non-covalent BTK inhibitor, can recapture responses even after covalent failure. The principle is to avoid redeploying a mechanism the disease has already defeated. Understanding resistance ties the strategy together. Covalent BTK inhibitors bind the cysteine 481 residue. The BTK C481S mutation abolishes that binding and is the dominant resistance mechanism, along with downstream PLCG2 mutations. Non-covalent inhibitors like pirtobrutinib bind elsewhere and therefore bypass C481S. Venetoclax resistance arises through BCL2 mutations, such as G101V, and through upregulation of alternative survival proteins like MCL1 and BCLXL. These mechanisms are exactly why we switch classes. Patients who are double refractory, having progressed through both a BTK inhibitor and venetoclax, are the most challenging group. CAR T-cell therapy is an emerging option in relapsed, refractory CLL. Allogeneic stem cell transplant remains the only potentially curative modality and is reserved for selected, fit, high-risk patients, including some with Richter transformation, after weighing its substantial toxicity against the prospect of durable disease control. Richter transformation is the development of an aggressive lymphoma, usually diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, from underlying CLL. Suspect it with rapid, often asymmetric nodal growth, new B symptoms, and a markedly elevated LDH. A PET scan identifies the most metabolically active, high SUV site to direct a biopsy, ideally excisional. Whether the large cell lymphoma is clonally related to the original CLL matters. Clonally related transformation carries a notably worse prognosis. Treatment of Richter transformation is difficult. Clonally related diffuse large B-cell lymphoma responds poorly to standard R-CHOP chemoimmunotherapy, and outcomes have historically been measured in months. Clinical trials are strongly preferred, with allogeneic transplant considered for the minority who achieve a response. The key cognitive step is distinguishing true transformation from ordinary CLL progression, because they are treated completely differently. Supportive care runs alongside every regimen. Infection prophylaxis and vaccination remain central, still avoiding live vaccines. When starting venetoclax, enforce tumor-lysis prophylaxis and lab monitoring. On BTK inhibitors, monitor for atrial fibrillation and hypertension, manage bleeding risk, and hold the drug appropriately around procedures. And throughout, autoimmune cytopenias are still managed first with corticosteroids rather than by escalating leukemia-directed therapy. Consolidate the Part 2 traps. 1. With 17p deletion or TP53 mutation, never choose chemoimmunotherapy. 2. Starting venetoclax means a weekly ramp-up with tumor-lysis prophylaxis. 3. New atrial fibrillation or bleeding on therapy points to ibrutinib. 4. Failure of a covalent BTK inhibitor implies the BTK C481S mutation, and the move is to non-covalent pirtobrutinib. 5. Rapidly enlarging nodes with a high LDH demand a biopsy to rule out Richter transformation. Apply it. A 72-year-old woman has been on ibrutinib for 2 years for CLL. She now develops a single, rapidly enlarging 6-centimeter cervical node, drenching night sweats, and an LDH 3 times the upper limit of normal, while her other nodes remain stable. What's the best next step in management? Pause and think about what that asymmetric, explosive node with a high LDH is telling you. The answer is a PET-directed excisional biopsy of that node. The picture, a single, rapidly growing, asymmetric node with drenching sweats and a sharply elevated LDH in a patient on BTK inhibitor therapy, is Richter transformation until proven otherwise, not ordinary CLL progression. The trap is reflexively switching CLL therapy. You must confirm the tissue diagnosis first, which determines prognosis and trial referral. That completes our two-part CLL series. Thanks for studying with me.